I wanted to thank my coaches. Mr. Wolf isn't in the room. Neither is Dylan or Bricker. They're all outside. But I'd like to thank them anyway. They were really supportive throughout the entire year, and Bricker's probably cut more files for us than, I don't know, it was kind of ridiculous. But it was really cool. And the coaching really helped us out a lot. It was really fun debating with Will, probably the best partner I've had in 4 years, and it was an awesome experience. Probably. You know, probably the best partner I had in 4 years. No, he was great. Best debate experience ever. Rajesh, Anshu, I'd like to thank you guys. We debated you all at camp, and that was the last time we debated you. And it's good to know that our last debate round will be against you guys too. Tight. Everyone good? Cool.
Contention when the heat is on, human useful warnings happening now. It's an indisputable deal with the brainstorm. In April, class sword indisputably the complex judgment for the round show consists of 2005. Round 1980 with the known meeting for establishing church and fully consists of church and monastery glaciers. Minimum tree file structure, she has declined 20% in 79 new analysis key. The increased 20th century, large century past that year, this has been reported by every single reconstruction works estimated banks and warm expected the expected conservation radiation mouse and for reinforcing is it was to rise from greenhouse acid gas source from 1.6 degrees Celsius alternative hypothesis proposal activity okay activity not show trans people explain warming suggestion or variability called the warming exert banks and works unprecedented or past past years said by different researchers with different methods consistently conclude that worms and improved reactions without it if your mom data analysis plantation follow actually talk release so too will lead for the warming C2's most for first out in such convention which every consultant answer their warming is reality and contention to contention to the science of warming skeptics and front phosphate industry dismissed for peer review studies Davies a skeptic view of global warming to reach for the question of authority test published include science and false control for peer review and a big published from reputable scientific journal must be the okay rather science safe fuel climate sample discussion process for the best evidence not possible published relevant peer review scientific journal what's the phosphate industry actions for this information you can ignore hints you want to know is just package will be probably the and climate models are accurate and getting better every day regular in a term models not first much reveals that the perception of progress opportunity must be sophisticated parametrizational too to computational resourcing to the level of confidence can be placed on risk prediction press study well similarly for the research more robust metrics and positive feedback to generate around global warming will be at the tipping point within the decade civilization will collapse information continue and check around and a researchers essentially believe warms accelerate pushing to the point at which climate change forms and makes irreversible we have a decade term situation around before pressures come blood food security more than melting glaciers at some point rise to the level no longer be vertical science the Arctic be free by speculation second impacts melting from frost climate change from out of control no longer be possible restaurants at this point the future civilization be reversed warming capacity governments come change going well even strong state civilization done around gravel contention too is the inferno scenario once bad versus climate change eliminates the Amazon rainforest piers and 7 Amazon rainforest threats climate change and change destroyed rainforest slowly just by decades after Trump remains climate change on the other hand it overwhelming if you were starting to exist maybe close to tipping point ground to suffering destruction and orgy farm down the Amazon rainforest be dead where rainforest turns desert this increase warmed by at least 50% and extinction toxic tanks used by diversity keeps world running destruction rich complex species the Amazon trade rapid change global compound extinction of species of family nuclear war access fall rapid and sees natural testing well break myself consequent to the spectrum nuclear range civilization will disappear and climate change spreads start to human extinction outweighs nuclear war in American times and extinction more likely false or process makes plain on how we consider climate change to be the greatest nature human extinction nuclear wars unlike constitution more destructive technology nature has to measure more times towards rational behavior nuclear weapons and enhanced terrorists not threatening human extinction the only possible threats present to climate change and history proves our planet will be engulfed in fire tickle and a born on the seal of human extinction all the world's close to the loss of severe droughts floods hurricanes floods down started experiencing significant action 5 million years plus maximum temperature increase decided to lose 5,000 years started historical that maybe now discuss warming good red house hot house earth scenario 2 is wars warming displaced buildings create gas ice and more CSM and 7 more like over a million to create electrical economic military towns warm displaced buildings even 10 50 million people migrate for environmental reasons political reasons social and forced migration makes wars we found one reason to disease rights to live refugees from global warming chaos results being incubated substructure inside terrorism and wolf take life features nuclear conflict terrorism disease spread breakdown the international order makes de-escalation possible peace center and treating on the climate station significant proliferation of UD immediately leads to an increase in international migration contagious disease like it will start spreading because black measure taken in last year WD company has terrorist groups or arrest politically multilateral system with anti arms race would result in use of these weapons undercutting possible success sending growth collapse facing international state multilateral regimes the worst man like terrorism nuclear weapons international migration scenario 3 is the economy warming collapse the economy woodbridge and sensible feedback mechanisms that option reaction climate change create a half for export agriculture produce close studies with force man abandoned location sex disease migrate it's marginally collapse global economy will implode and nuclear war even to engage our current economic collapse WD surge be released after an 11% rapid escalation to float of exchange groups absorbing great arm get destroy civilization during forest is oxygen CO2 emissions drastically reduce oxygen level through most inclusive foods results in extinction tactile and 8 oxygen per atmosphere to climb over the ultimate threat survival being modified by concentration 30% of oxygen starvation is reduced fish stock burn Climate Harrison, for acceleration, touching human activity, burning fossil fuels, active loss, is life speed, mass speed, consequence of increasing burning fossil fuels, rights, is difficult for people to get sufficient oxygen, 7% life can no longer be sustained. Scenario 5 is CO2 independently destroys the ocean CERN, and 7 ocean acidification, carbon dioxide, major effects of emission continue to rise. Ocean acidity like increase further acidity makes hard for creatures, farm skeletons, disrupting extinction, irreversibly harmful global damage to plankton and extinction. Great reefs that can sort of environmental fluctuation, ocean ecosystems play a major role in chemical cycle, living organisms, biodiversity. It's important to maintain function. If we kill the ocean, we kill ourselves, and despite CO2 fertilization, warming independently destroys agriculture, causing mass starvation that kills 5.5 million strong. And 7. Food production begins to expand water starvation, responsible for the Westminster starvation, 5 billion people, agriculture, critical survival, civilization, for food production, based on temperature relief, large-scale starvation outside the continent, far away, but 50 CO2 will have half the effects previously below ground level, so result loss for 6 only few days. Hot temperatures really reduce yield, thus the plan. The United States federal government should require that electric utilities meet 20% of electricity demand with renewable energy by 2020 and establish renewable energy credits to facilitate this goal. Will clarify contention to solvency. Federal RPS supports massive investment in renewable energy without any negative consequences. Cooper. And 7. All states have renewable resource they develop national mandate level playing field by community for rules, the RPS not increase rates of consensus economic predict national policy generally changing national RPS, reduce national gas predict RPS increase cost relative to safe state manager RPS reduce cost using Spain exchange diverse for renewable resource RPS decrease compliance cost national RPS protect the environment coherent national policy protects the interests of utilities. Now is the time for federal leadership and RPS is key. Substantially reducing greenhouse gas emissions, CO2 emissions, 12 the real elections here, the single large contributor to global warming, Cooper, and 7 top 10 secures on the election generation. The phosphate trap emit more 10 times the amount of CO2 election generation is by substantial margin. The single large contributor for global warming, 20% RPS reduced carbon dioxide emission for 34 million metric tons of renewable technology. We're successful at displacing emissions Europe now views renewable energy as the major tool of CO2 reduction and reverses global warming, cuts emissions by 2/3. Fontaine and Frank Leather and 2 rapid paradigm shift towards renewable energy. Both the U.S. include leadership on CO2 emissions back to the industry. Leadership towards global climate change, renewable energy 20% by 2020, reduce CO2 emissions by 2/3 in business as usual by 2020, and warming is impossible to stop that new technology. RPS induce innovations, key piece under climate change. And 4. Portfolio new technologies required any major effort to reduce emissions, employing these policies essential for creating technological innovation, private under investment in government policy, national research development, and infusion of new technologies necessary to address climate change. Part of coordination contention. 4 is Copenhagen. U.S. leadership starting point for agreements on climate change, specifically Copenhagen, Northbrook, and non-conference conference Copenhagen May 2009 due that year for conference climate change. U.S. will claim the man of global leadership council on support acceleration needed feedback loops and needs regulatory achievement. Obama should adopt mandatory federal renewable energy target. There will not be another political opportunity as right now, nor a financial cost for sensitive accomplishment set the stage for competency of international treaty, and the plan encourages international cooperation over a plethora of issues, leads to a safe withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq, and drives some change in the international approach to burden sharing and peace building in the Middle East and Southeast Asia that impacts extinction zones at all. And 8, unless we strengthen the mechanism of cooperation for global warming, which will rather be in jeopardy and compelling examples of warming. In the search for cooperation, starting the climate negotiations, Copenhagen, tries Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran will draw attention away from foreign from investing in international partnership, but investment institutions could create diplomatic necessary to withdraw troops from Iraq, build strong foreign against Iran's nuclear ambition, partnership necessary to build peace of Afghanistan. G20 provides a foundation for strong cooperation, and U.S. international leadership solves the Pakistan crisis. This is the comparatively greatest risk of war deal, and 5 levels of American influence still coming to a head. Pakistan external power extremism is big. As any the president's face since the end of the Cold War, the respond to aggressive array of initiatives, and the impact is not exaggerated. Now is key Malik, and 427 however far-fetched this may appear, is not without reason. Afghanistan Taliban may conduct active improvement their ideology focused on ignoring dissatisfaction in media threat. We must encourage steps now and nuclear war risks. And one prospect Pakistan may take over extremists, especially worrisome because possessing nuclear weapons indeed would not stand eye by. After back to provoke war, U.S. war games small confrontation between India and Pakistan result in nuclear war, and U.S. will pull out of Iraq and inevitably soon risk an escalation of conflict go speed. And 5 most researchers may be desperate after stabilizing pull out the ATG stabilizing entire Middle East, precipitate pull out and lead to political breakdown, risk of conflict spread, greater than Russian region-wide war, and a new round of Iraqi instability, risk World War III, Horsey, and 7 war breaks out in Iraq will face pressure to stand. Israel and Israel, you have no choice but to invade Syria, Iraq, war spin into regional war with Israel waiting to launch a coup with Russian leaders unloaded way to attack on China. They have the women to go after Taiwan.
Alright. Let's talk about Copenhagen first.
Yeah.
Your internal link to solving the Pakistan crisis through deal evidence says, do the levers of American influence still work? It is coming to a head in Pakistan. This seems to assume military leadership, which has nothing to do with climate leadership. What evidence do you have that climate leadership is key to bolster hard power?
Sure. Our Jones evidence indicates that climate leadership is critical to getting the diplomatic clout to solve stuff like Iraq pullout, Pakistan
That's actually not true. Your evidence indicates that it's key to create a diplomatic surge. Why do we need diplomatic credibility to withdraw from Iraq?
I mean,
the opposite would be true.
Our evidence indicates it creates burden sharing. It's specific to the Middle East. It indicates, and our internal link evidence is a question of U.S. credibility.
Your evidence is from the Bush administration when we did need a lot of diplomatic clout. There's been massive. It's from early 08.
No, it's from December 08.
Yeah. Our Jones evidence just talks about like diplomatic
I
avenues that would be
don't
opened
understand why
by
current
using the plan.
cooperation that Obama has isn't enough credibility to be able to let us
Look,
withdraw from
our
Iraq.
internal link evidence indicates that
Like,
the
we've already started
pullout.
withdrawing.
Yeah, our internal link evidence assumes this and says the pullout's inevitable. It's just a question of whether the pullout is safe and effective. So Iraq isn't unstable. when
Why
we
would
do
other
pull out.
countries have an incentive to not cooperate with us on Iraq?
Well, no, our
It seems like
evidence.
it would imperil their security as well.
No, our evidence indicates that it would create an incentive for burden sharing. It's almost like a concession
It
on
seems
climate
like that
change.
version terms are irrelevant. That's fine. Let's talk about your Jones evidence. Also seems to, in the ununderlined portion, says forging effective cooperation
Sure.
is necessary. Why would the plan cause cooperation over climate change?
Yeah, that's why we read the Northern evidence. It talks about Copenhagen and indicates that the plan gives Obama the necessary credibility to work for new treaties at Copenhagen
This
and
brings me to
before.
my
That's
next
where it's
question.
cooperation.
Who are these treaties with, and like who does the plan increase cooperation
Sure,
with?
China, India, developing nations, people involved at Copenhagen.
Why would China and India have an incentive to cooperate with us on renewable energy? It seems like those are developing countries that explicitly did not want to be subject to Kyoto, which
Yeah.
is like a reason why they wouldn't have an incentive to.
Well,
cooperate
we
with
have a
the
few arguments. The so-called Cooper evidence and the Pew Center evidence all talks about technology transfer between nations. So RPS would spur innovation and cause tech transfers internationally that would give these countries the incentive to implement these policies. Second,
Where does your evidence? Your evidence is good about the question of tech transfer. Where is your evidence good on the question of implementation of this technology? Here's your evidence. Point out a single piece of evidence that indicates that two major carbon-emitting countries, i.e. India and China, have an incentive to cooperate with renewable technology.
Sure, this is our Copenhagen advantage. We read evidence from the Pew Center on Climate Change, which is insolvency, that indicates that India and China would
you have
cooperate
30 seconds.
if we had.
Our evidence indicates that actually China is increasing renewables now, but they're also building a dirty coal plant once every week. Why would they have an incentive to back off of those coal plants if they think it's going to help them?
Our Pew Center evidence indicates that China would look to U.S. leadership, that tech transfer would create an incentive for them
Can you
to
give
use
me
these
that evidence
technologies.
before the 1MC starts?
That's just the Pew Center evidence.
Which one is that?
There's only one Pew Center evidence.
Well, can you, this one?
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
I wanted to make a couple thank yous before I started. Midway through my last year, I almost quit debate, and I realized now that would have been like the worst choice of my life. I love this activity so much. The first special thank you to the Heights. Miss Height, though she gives me a lot of, time on looking like a human all the time, but she really cares about me, and she really genuinely is a good person. And D Height, to say that my entire college choice was dependent upon this one man is an understatement. He gets up at 1:30 every night to write my 2-hour blocks. Hayes did not know who he was before this year, but best politics card cutter ever. Casey, I thought I was debating him when I first saw him, but amazing, brilliant guy. Dylan is crazy, but in the best way possible because he's so funny to be around. I'd like to thank Ellis and Dite for being here, highlighting all the cards I don't want to highlight, cleaning up after me, providing me with bagels, of you, Dite, and just cutting great cards, and then the rest of Westminster and the team, the seniors, for supporting us. And then finally, I'd just like to thank the community for all the help you guys gave me out of the round. Special thanks to Scott Phillips, Bill Bellarmine, Roy, Greenstein, Callum for helping me out around when I bothered y'all. And finally, I'd like to thank Unshu, hands down best debater this year, and thank her for carrying me. The order is 5 off, then 1 off, then Copenhagen.
5 off, 4 me.
Yeah. I should keep that one.
Anyone? Highlighter?
No.
Lighting water?
Time passes somewhere. Alright. All good?
First up, take positive and 7 totally positive news, exclusive requirement here stated in text meeting. My son is something to make which reward and general positive feeling example be credit spot for human set of categories bands includes a collective extension attack and credit revised to defendant and this violation plays direct to a man naturally positive reduces his voting issue while limits positive dependence conforming back from standing up and culture with claim access makes this unavailable to negative make top bilateral friends critical next strategies for example regulate directly post tax attack should be top culture protected voting issue over the street where what we could run around next off decay the search institution receiver cause of palmer rapid to control convicts by new crisis escalating zero pulse me factor thoughts cause palmer needs to be without search resolution make order 290 by prediction and we argue about my narrative intervention making towards pen do the change solution because it's part of the self-connected way of solving because hackers worth called with like things confident these have trees rates sometimes the problematic products makes way does make the opening space power the effective power to new possibilities and energy and reduces all life sustainable zero also it's the root cause of environmental catastrophe make order and to push you manage technological make advantage try to give up other quick to all the inflated energy well let's not what it does when it gets to get so responsible what was where to consume energy technology and the world standing reserve I mean with this mission and command to be on sold embedded in the country of western ideology has alternative do nothing alternative solve the fixing as the fixing action brings us back from the catastrophe of tech forward into thinking means thinking that's why thinking cat 5 minutes thinking about the annihilation thinking or writing actions no time to lose one thing it's explanation have a message or thinking can't means everything your notion be right means questioning or measures probably thinking behind means thinking paradox means losing place action how to work out Russian with solution correct lasers also that predetermined AMX has the policy sex spectrum switch has created possibility of cardiac capacity but the cardiac still one vote short of GP filled by 420 letters big was now one close to spectrum also more to come across with more IES the believe release on extinct rotated a third having filled and building found so one vote should step to opposition not pivotal lesson where we're on opposition also winners win singer 370 local back life and include your replace great deal capital was in your heart to extend and CC's built a more couple of G's going went over past the got up to side your acquisition and being word by American public and as key to a kill street trade bando, a youth secretary search musician cost American youth here would lead to more case for unity legislation channeling and trade legalization would die, and that's solved if we work properly. 90, a couple of 99, the nation put together with the W4 stock conflict, planning trading, world money, world public, economic or make the smaller check and December agreed to wage war. Next up, the electricity price, it said electricity price will remain low and stable any particularly small with respect for one expected platinum industry electricity leads to project flying 1.7 year rates up to the low 1% economic climate, so we're covering stuff for utilities have some rate result to our cost, but other issues except for the possible the type of cost rights and current levels of low renewable penetration don't fail the grid wave. 9, there are no people outside the south wind solar not high demand. 4, wind solar variable wind changes climate moments of climate use. This makes grid high low wind solar contributing more faster than control the generation and a national RPS uniquely uses electricity by forcing states to adequate renewable resources paid for more for buying credits posture. 7 years our federal RPS comes 7 billion 23 much that we use rates and especially in southeast international Mr. Menchie said the definition of the nuclear hydrogen fuel station 20% channels the consumer space and overall rich states will supply the own market supply provides the new program to overproduce these there's group around loads of blackouts AP to 9 the renewable low carbon not RPS run against run specify when you can charge specify gold feature contrast certain settings RPS should control cost efficiency and diversify fully generate fields for advantage or expensive not only the least cost generation huge numbers of my public expensive transmission line with people against RPS reports studies like Atlanta to but it was a very notice period of renewable technology low population means with local demand to 20% it raises slightly beyond 50% 1 years supply disruption highly critical black house Congress should specify see television electricity production list of costs to a solution when an increasing government really allows blackouts Detroit U.S. leadership encourages terrorists from Lewis State the U.S. electric man is building a market culture and percent of mortuary create the electricity reliability American increasing their war population limited international perceived by tank the risk of the American stuff you we calculate is American side view people jobs and leadership to defend nuclear war policy and family leadership including the rest of global nuclear global nuclear exchange and increasing electric respect global depression and team 2 border coalition between economic growth 5 to price go right is so the president to ensure global structure that the economy and environment will be losers and that leads to nuclear war be 9 worst conditions international coming down to for building people you as for possible more severely and missing by Bush the Europe spent baseball in 1928 with depression like poison jumping probably if the workers in Japan Rocky spent such launching about Karachi Beijing New Delhi born units may not yet but if the only companies back in China we still have to fight next at the capital tax. The United States federal government should establish a carbon portfolio standard requiring 20% reduction in carbon emissions from electric utilities by 2020 and establish low carbon emission credits to result in goals. The United States federal government should phase out all alternative energy mechanisms, phase out all alternative energy for electricity. And the counterplan does everything what the plan does at a lower cost of owning electricity, greater price impact. It creates a mix of renewables and other technologies and investment. Late 9, there are significantly implementing federal RPS global industry on the media growth. 80% raise carbon dioxide CVS where it does more effectively. RPS technologies have different carbon emission will give credit all this makes sense legislation would great flexibility increasing renewables and free fossils competition accomplishments new capacity efficient, lowering grading contribution renewables, trading, renewable credits lit by contribution, transmission, all of this when low propositions, conventional electromagnetic reliability is when the understand when public wins shows variable, when to be changed from the modes class intervention challenges with reliability, when it's all contributing more 5% of total generation, and the CPS solves CO2 emission, lower costs and RPS and boost climate leadership and national monitoring occurs only if the United States can curb emissions effectively. APT, so legislative CPS are expanded RPS and maintenance costs related to age profiles to be higher. Hope the United States longer C2 to police to show how efficiently a way CPS can make a lighter action less costly CPS and actual solution with cost many balances faster by advanced proponents of RPS and the counterplan revitalizes a reinvestment in IGCC coal plants in Slee and Hendrick the carbon-based performance technology nuclear current would drive IGCC coal plants will come from really with such potential all across the new session life carbon capture and investment capital finance plans and aside investment from clean coal technology purchasing to change technology with a composite fleet all capture storage the coal fire power generation challenges with causes for expand private and new policy measures to federal new middle zoning federal and some continuing comparative capital finance in new intervention for renewable policy New York Times and we have also energy pool of investment social contracts and coals and global US investment to solve global warming virus around 7. The United States need to do much more than expanding weight pattern global warming. Actually, one gives examples so much in China and South Africa. It's going to be slow enough for cheap domestic coals. Going to every week to adapt one to my country to reduce because energy when we get federal level of concentration, we'll see a powerful change. Energy, South Africa, IGC plans to do incredibly efficient locking and carbon control technology 50 years are going to miss. And opportunity investment in world energy good infrastructure we got for the field of centuries could upsells make low carbon higher energy and it's not linked to warming. Plan can access water support. The political technology would dramatically change the U.S. change back by global currency breakdown. RGC and China and India might furnish their coal due to play warming coal. The United States where the climate has low to do China's adoption coal is China is an Indian object the US market legal and UVs technology was once a cost of greater than lucrative American export business. Now the case global coal emission pool substantially over wildlife effects of the land is solving Berlin and Berlin assessment 7 the United States to give gigawatts of energy coal that's 2030 substantially over lower emissions. These coal emission clear possibilities of greenhouse gas formation made for projects dramatically. New power plants China to be falling greenhouse gas emissions black house and reduce failure to every global warming technology CO2 emission coal power plants and modeling what happened unless coal is given priority in energy policy basis to more props for the nation can give cheap energy coal like coal they do develop countries under the energy of economic growth shift clean energy with the resident power over low energy and climate policy. Also, the plan would trade off with natural gas, not coal, which means it can solve for health, 7 coal industry, land rise with no sign. I was looking back to be decades, these alternative coal, natural gas. Well, RPS have measured success in developing renewables, let's see a significant impact on coal temperature renewable. The increased natural gas and encouragement from renewable electricity and appear to have substantial effect. And nowadays, I know on the alternate causality sustainability grant artist too, special situation community for the challenge building, the margin economy and funded by economic development and country space, the life property violence when originated from terrorism and drug trafficking and organized crime. Also Interlink is empirically not other impasse instabilities proves Interlink. Also their cost sites proves that they don't have Interlink's advantage based off diplomatic credibility of the plan. Also instabilities no escalation, no vital interest whites, 6 countries run revenue game exaggerated for countries includes not directly challenging power just China, Russia, United States most, and to regional threats related to the great perhaps no intent allows all substantial interests, also no impact. US security news in Pakistan 87. Pakistan nuclear weapons under American control. Jets Pakistan nuclear strategy and continue to be Pakistan nuclear weapons is prominent. Washington combinators have U.S. action would most cooperation modern conflicts with nuclear arsenal damage of extreme takeover. Also 0 and instead of escalation ABC2. Then use member Pakistan even have to Pakistan use to describe it would be focused on passion and time period. Well, like what blue is boarding those mindsets and create will have destruction and will backfire. And
Go back to warming.
Warming, nothing can offset coal enough to matter for warming. Shots and 7 will co-produce and leave the life of decades to expand. World demand by 2050 years on the go substantially after leaving most aggressive energy responsible renewable energy protect the limits to the lifespan for all several decades.
Mark
Did
that.
you finish that?
I marked it as simple.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, status, the counter plan and the K alternative?
Both conditional.
Okay, cool.
But the K alternative is an affirmation of the status quo.
All right, fair enough. So on the alternative, by the way, so this is the text. The alternative is reject.
No, do nothing.
Calculative. It's just do nothing. Okay, so it's not reject, calculative thinking, all that stuff. All right, do nothing. What does do nothing do about warming?
It solves the reasons for why consumption occurs in the status quo.
Well, no. How does do nothing solve warming though? Because I don't
Okay,
understand.
it opens
what
up
doing
space for
nothing does.
ontological reflection, which would solve the reasons why environmental materials and is destroying the environment.
So what does ontological reflection do? Like, what is an example of ontological reflection?
I can't really give an example, but for example, that idea that we should create, the idea that we should look for some sort of specific solutions, exactly what we critique by going back and
Okay.
rethinking what our ontology.
Okay, fair enough. So alternative would preclude a specific solution.
Not necessarily. It would require ontological reflection before that strategy.
Okay, so ontological reflection before a specific solution. Fair enough. This electricity prices, DA, your uniqueness evidence indicates that electricity prices are low right now because of low demand. How does the plan change demand?
Demand is not the internal link.
No, but your uniqueness evidence speaks to demand. I'm curious why.
Okay, there are two arguments here. First, our
is cheap
uniqueness
right
and
now.
internal link evidence is not based off demand. Second, our link
No,
evidence
your
is specific.
uniqueness evidence is based off demand. I'm curious why
Our
the plan
uniqueness
would
evidence is
change
not
those
based on demand.
conditions.
Okay, regardless, the link evidence is distinct from that because it indicates that the plan would create grid overload because it creates perverse incentives for people to create renewable energy technology, overloading the grid, which would expand.
Let's talk about that grid overload, because states, our so-called Cooper evidence is pretty good about how states are taking patchwork
Two arguments there.
actions
Okay,
right
two arguments
now.
there. First is they have not resulted in significant renewable energy, as proven by your first advantage. Second is that these state RPSs would not result in the same effect as the plan.
Why?
Because your affirmative preempts them.
No, but my question is, why would a state RPS not just jack up electricity prices? Because your link evidence indicates that
Once again, our
RECs
link evidence is based off the fact that expansive trading of RECs would be bad, as well as the fact that increasing renewable energy, which is what your first advantage is a link argument as well, which you have not contested.
Okay, fair enough. Card check. Your uniqueness evidence, your Cummings evidence indicates that we're 1 vote short of passing card check. If this does matter, I'm curious why we wouldn't inevitably get that 1 vote to pass card check. Like,
if RPS matters, why wouldn't we get the votes to pass?
No. My question is, your link evidence, I guess, or at least your Cummings evidence is from the 28th of April, and your link evidence is pretty old. I'm curious why other.
Link evidence is from 3.3.
Okay. I'm curious why legislation since March 3rd has not allowed for 1 vote to be given to card check so that it passes.
Our uniqueness evidence is based upon Spectre changing, and that's changed the political climate. A win for Obama now means that additional Republicans would give.
Yeah, but was Spectre switching? How did Spectre switching change the fact that it's only 1 vote away?
It's 1 more vote. He changed the climate.
So it was 2 votes, I guess, before Spectre. How did that? I mean, where's your evidence?
I don't understand the
that
argument you're making. It will not pass now, but it's close.
Okay.
Well, I have a question. What is it a benefit to your counterclaim?
Electricity prices and clean coal.
Okay.
All right. Not politics.
Not politics.
Debaters. And I think even more relevantly is that he reminded me to thank everyone just before I gave my speech. So I think that sort of tells you a lot about the partnership. I don't have anyone writing me 2-hour overviews, but my coach, Chris Wolf, and also Dylan Groves and Brett Ricker, who are also really cool people, and also all of the alumni who sort of pulled through for us and cut us some cards here and there, and everyone else in the debate team, and basically everyone in the community who really have, I guess, made this something awesome. Yeah, so with that, the order will be warming, actually Copenhagen, warming, topicality, politics, actually, let's put the counter plan before politics. So the order is Copenhagen, or warming, Copenhagen, topicality, then the counter plan, then politics, then the transmission, I guess electricity prices, DISAD, and finally, the Heidegger critique. Let me just clarify what you want, warming before Copenhagen. No warming before Copenhagen. Tight.
War is the only notice in our few weeks to continue our contempt evidence indicates it outweighs the war that frames about else continued. A 6 distinctions are please. You can't come back to that. We can solve one to north evidence indicates we create national treaties to solve all the coal argument with Q Saturn indicates we create tech narratives and Fontaine evidence indicates we combinations by 2/3 regardless of what technology we offset and we offset coal, some Cooper and 70 position national RPS lead lower generation battery gas coal facilities and examination full generation stuff 6 get the 5 minutes suspended by state RPS but otherwise generate 87% coal and national RPS woods and environmental social consequences goes with fossil fuels and we can't access modeling best at all and 7 the human farming to matter to the first next story job piece of world action job piece of code generation of the country now with technology steep real local technology sold the gold market to American lags and renewable energy technology the rest of the world also lags and RPS revitalizes Alaska native tribes to ready to create revenue Sanders and 416 Alaska code to support market for renewable energy credits Alaska ones another parallel wealth and renewable energy import part of long-term resolution village enterprise natives college parks select community and RPS the RS language sets renewable energy generate native lands university double credits and solve extinction cap and 97 biodiversity to conservation standards indigenous people's goal justice diversity study Alaska native cultures trying to do traditions, diverse cultures, solutions for human survival to the world, different monoculture is a threat to human survival, and we, Copenhagen advantage, we saw the entire advantage. There, not any relevant presses that conceded. Our bandwagon argument means other countries get on board. Also, the impact of waste, and we have stars escalation. Malik evidence, Rick's evidence is far more recent, indicates the Taliban's recruiting now, which proves what it would escalate in via launch to nuclear perception, proven by war models, and the Iraq advantage of pellets and evidence could be evidence indicates World War III. That's, of course, the evidence impact defense relevant to Saddam. As new as ours, go to the top caliber debate, we meet no much credit to the possibility center for intervention dominion, and anger our pistols, top going for no much change, investment use of no much credit, makes plus incentive to build no much credit generation, counter inflation, and status of financial transfers to direct requirements for intervention, desire, 7 no much incentives group to get together, financial incentives for regulation policies, RPS is best, A, education, the best policy, synergistic, B, is layman's positive incentives, arbitrary, stable, plan makes an interpretation, check by cool increase of both topic, C, ground research and regulations inevitable, Bashard, and A, makes with incentives, limits, direct financial transfers, for the state plan, provided by state governments, which is much, equality, all interpretations, contextual, no ground loss, regulation, this potential increase, alternative bench, vote F, releasing the topical, and the counterplan. Counterplan doesn't help the case. A subpoints the terminal when she's key to definitional precision. So-called Cooper and Set definition rule is the clear consistent comprehensive national RPS to conclude all renewable research discovery against U.S. definition of quantum policymakers to constantly advise manage to include technology made for national RPS before bid debates to upgrades, make them move on each debate, reduce minister blessing, free generation, continuing modeling rulings, and this causes lawsuits, and that kills an RPS. So-called Cooper and 7 deputies to an RPS states confusion regulations resulting in directed and expensive lawsuits, make definition real research specifically titles, and because of the states RPS applied to existing renewable energy technologies prompted a lawsuit, and this is specifically true in the context. Their counterplan, Cooper and 7 federal RPS includes coal, will prevent uniform national research to tradable renewable energy credits in most state level RPS mandates not recognizing tools, as well as renewable research and national RPS includes coal and include cost of utilities, and increasing consumer electricity prices, creating more consistency, discouraging national park for alternative permutation to both permutation to the counterplan's plan plus includes coal, and the RPS mechanism and permutation to the plan, and all other alternative energy incentives, and coal collapses the railroad industry, future energy coalition, Santa Fe most new coal plants would not be eliminated in adjacent mines. The self-traditional coal plant requires 56 train cars of coal SCGC plants, the same size car 44 cars for the availability of these concerned to by having coal and heighten the supply disruption and collapse economy, farm, and egg for those who've never seen the good railroad, it's literally chaos and supply chain goods that keep the U.S. economy having depth the world economy billions of dollars, high guts, big electricity price for anyone. It's not rocket science, and peak oil is true. Oil will become more expensive than natural gas, energy pollution, 7 coal production to be reasons to similar solutions. The world could run out of economic recovery. The reserves of coal must be this trends entire coal prices from coal into the gas may change. The better consumption kind of production than waiting to be faster with shortages and price volatility later. And clean coal leads to mountaintop removal. Fishery and mining companies came from coal. There's no such thing as clean coal. You'll let it very practice plentiful environmental cost of talent before coal burns. And after you rip from the ground, and that collapses biodiversity and means extinction. A and C, and for the Appalachian Mountains, both biologically first reached the temperate world, 6 year depth region found here, and nowhere else in the world. Also clean coal. Also no modeling. IPR, so-called use technology firms show reluctance to export clean coal techniques. Weak IPR clean firms with the independent disadvantage, and green coal fails. Ace points leakage. So-called in the most serious challenge between stories and sequence to identify size, environmental education, control, and constantly control underground system to curb the knife reliability. Issues are intimidating sensitive side to leakage can change, accelerate climate change. B supports infrastructure, so-called aid. The energy splitters and carbon capture still very expensive. 60% of future emissions captured falling with carbon liquid, so all the oil concerns no CO2 project has the monitoring verification of overcome technical issues. Carbon capture don't win their project until 3 tons of CO2 must be sequestered to offset every ton emitted, and cost prohibitive, hence privacy. 9, trying to build any more if you want to research design models. We are far too optimistic regarding cost, and their research is exaggerated, rejected. Hansen and privacy. 9, researchers are attempting to show that CCS is sound, highly certain national gas relations identify still know which creates CCS system gaps may be seen when it comes to costs like single phase storage, permits, literature, CCS is misleading, and it links to the politics it said, and it links to their net benefit, and it doesn't solve Copenhagen because we need a renewable energy transition. That's the north evidence. Go to the politics debate. Spectrum one swing business week 428. My change in party field state not mean I'll part vote will not be the automatic 6th vote. My position on FCO cards will not change, and Spectrum will concede. LV signed 431, which is Spectrum that's the price later pivotal market. The employee feature second plus bills, Spectrum new town place, and the Democratic Party's not changed the calculus, and the Obama's still pushing it. Give people what means pass people's way to the world, and 429 extension Biden should the Polish president support most passage of FCO. We think as migrant countries say will be to a certain head Biden since referencing current state federal level of Biden accepts optimism that FCO will pass, and it's on the docket. Arizona Republic 5-3. Obama's keeping immigration reform, and the White House the front push reform cops, capital top 10 third tops healthcare budget, education, and healthcare, energy, guns, power we regain our fiscal house, and our PS5
bipartisan response to global warming issue. Cooper. And 7, Congress debated our pace 17 times this year bipartisan support increased pressure to increase global warming to propose fighting chance. Political capital generated. Singer. And 33 voices major capital political capital bomb spending stands at the top of 6 weeks. The more capital bank political capital generate the dependence expense. A great deal of capital. And measure there's different general more capital that appears to be what's happening with Obama. Who went to the map of stimulus and there's no spillover. But between different issues. Edwards and 3. Bipartisanship one does not carry over. The must believe that more stable facts protecting global Congress the ideology party political constituencies members of Congress are unlikely to vote against appearance constituent sole indifference to an executive and the opposition and the electricity prices dissent transmission upgrades are inevitable. Federal RPS requires rapid renewables based infrastructure development. So Paul Cooper and utilities have to invest in serious upgrades transmission regardless of lines with inadequate funded absent government entities national upgrades stimulate new transmission faster with less popular oxygen conventional generation because lead times for conventional power plants 12 times long wind plants plants take 6 months to develop, and that's the single renewable based infrastructure is the single way to avoid total economic collapse. Heidelberg 12.4 ostensibly the credit card just fills primary case. However, that oil production safety tank should not be overlooked. Well, the country's entire economy crucially depends on energy supplies and cut off economic activity halts. The economy gets growing energy supply limits and NIPS recovering the butt and RPS offsets natural gas prices that reduces electricity volatility. No, sheet 7 renewable energy produced long supply chains for all those that are not vulnerable to shortages driven from placing natural gas utilities most price volatility utilities for energy portfolio are an important hedge against gas price risk and LNG's cost of wars. However, before U.S. faces gas prices to not break capacity production as gas prices will whole industry shut down. Modern economies cannot function with adequate energy supply regulations for endeavored supplies of global peak and natural gas being able to supply to a world of LNG much more troubling with the increased likelihood of endless war. And go to the criticism of President's rule about climate policy options. Best A is competitive equity sources of air pressure something with check of ground beach. Hope is bad. Possible is key. Counter competition. Read your case. Counter plan votes be spinning for private permutation to the plan and rethink technological thought as per their McWhorter text of their evidence. And this solves best living. And we want technological communication community. Only technology states better scientific understanding is the federal professor was focused technological plus old pendulum farms and the application of intellectual surrender fusion gauge with concrete reality station to the Oscar not culture not involved with it's not necessary to spend our efforts solve particular problems so we figure the world in post technological way. And wind power will cost a hell of a cost. Tech is good. Tells in 95 the rational awards of the Oscar Smith Bearing units have the Krishan is the rational safe challenge technologies the practice spice of system defending planet Earth tech thoughts inevitable. Cative in 97 it scarce conceive the humanity the flesh and passions of our loves can halt technological crossing but assumption far from humanity could adopt an alteration without having to be forced on the way to global testing inspired not one to walk through emergence root cause is essentialist and zero false pose and empirically denied.
Alright, so let's talk about this add-on you read, this LNG add-on. So you said that it stops gas price volatility, so you say that an RPS would trade off the natural gas.
Oh no, argument is an RPS would offset coal. But if you
It
do
offset coal,
win,
but
if you
it
do
offsets-
win that it offsets natural gas, argument is that natural gas price fluctuations are bad.
Okay, but you read evidence which indicates that you solely trade off with natural gas, and then you
No.
read evidence that is speculative on the question of whether or not you trade off with coal.
No, I read a piece of evidence on the
Okay.
solvency debate indicating that
Your evidence,
we
okay, can you
almost
point out
certainly-
that card where it says that you would not trade off with solely natural
No,
gas?
this isn't the evidence. I'm talking about the so-called Cooper 2007 evidence I read.
This
on
piece
the
of evidence indicates that, quote, the electricity mandated by state RPSs would have been generated by a percentage of 87% coal.
87% coal.
So
That
a
means
state
we're
RPS
offsetting
resulted in
87%
87% coal?
No, the evidence indicates that of the energy that was offset, 87% of it was coal.
Seems to say would be generated with a mix of 87%.
Otherwise be generated. That's the word right before the line you read.
Okay, that's speculative. Alright, let's talk about the elastic arm add-on. So, what you read of this card indicates that it said, quote, natives are calling on Congress to enact a renewable portfolio standard. Renewable energy credits are an important part of long-term resolution of village energy crisis. And then you said, cultural traditions solve extinction.
No, actually, our evidence indicates natives are.
There seems to be a little bit of a missing link between the two. Can't put my finger on it. But.
I mean, no, our evidence indicates a long-term resolution for the village energy crisis. Native Americans are facing
That
collapse.
link is just based
It's just based on renewable energy. It's based on renewable energy.
It's the REC transfer.
REC, so the tradable part of the capital. Okay.
No, because it's an REC, and under an REC mechanism, I guess Alaska gets double credits.
Okay, so that's fine.
The
So
natives.
clean coal. Your Fisher evidence, which indicates leads to mountain pop removal, says that mining companies came for coal, so that they're mining coal now. So coal demand. So if we win that you don't trade off with coal, is this a dissent to the counterplan?
It's a dissent to the counterplan because the counterplan accelerates coal development.
Accelerates coal development?
Yeah.
What piece of evidence indicates we would accelerate coal development?
Your evidence indicates that a clean portfolio standard or whatnot would rapidly accelerate.
That's fine. Okay, now let's read about your renewable energy card.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Your renewable energy evidence indicates that the reason why renewable energy is bad is because it lacks a definition. A carbon portfolio standard just literally just says that we would create a tax on any carbon, So where would the jurisdictional battles be for what constitutes renewable energy?
Our
It's
evidence-
literally anything that reduces carbon.
No, our evidence indicate, yeah, that's the problem, right? The ambiguity in the interpretation.
How is that
doesn't
ambiguous?
possible.
What part of that is ambiguous?
Well, the problem is that you need renewable energy as a term of art is crucial for an RPS function.
Okay,
It's
explain what
on the
part
state level.
of a you have to reduce carbon is ambiguous.
Well, because the definition of what is included is entirely
You have to reduce
ambiguous.
carbon. Any way you do that is good.
Yeah, and
That's ambiguous.
companies- Yeah, it's incredible.
What part of that is ambiguous?
Well, because what is a clean coal technology? What reduces carbon?
How
What
does
if
that
clean coal
not
technology
apply just to
fails?
a plan? Like, what is wind technology?
Because wind technology works, right? Clean coal's up in the air.
That's
Okay, so were there any theory arguments?
I don't think so.
No, and the only add-on was
Just the
this
framework
latest
stuff.
argument
What?
in LNG, okay.
Oh, you told me? Yeah, it was on
Is that a reason to reject the team?
the. Of course not. No, it's a reason.
It's a reason to reject the argument.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. This is my last debate ever, not debating in college, but I just want to start out by thanking the debate community at large. It's been a fantastic 4 years. I'm really going to miss it. I'm probably going to come back to some high school tournaments as much as possible. I want to thank the University of Kentucky and Dr. Patterson for hosting this tournament. It's obviously a great competition and the thing that we all look forward to the most. I want to thank our coaches. Rajesh listed them all off and listed their various benefits. They also include 2 in-hour blocks from D-height. Haha, just kidding. Our coaches are basically the most fantastic team I could possibly ask for. I also want to thank my 2 older partners, Stephen Weil and Elizabeth Allen. They're some of the best partners I could have asked for in the past 2 years. I also really owe Rajesh a lot this year. Not only is he a fantastic debater, but he has really, really helped me out every time my confidence is waning and gives me a little pep talk, and he's one of my best friends in the whole world. I think that's everyone. Oh yeah, shout out to the Michigan 7-Week Seniors Lab. Every single person in this room was in that lab this summer, debating here, and anyone who's interested, I'm doing my advertising pitch now. All right.
go there.
Yeah, socially experiment. The order is just the counter plan, and there will be a small overview at the top.
Before you start, do you have any more of the one counter plan debate?
I don't think I took any of it back.
What about me?
Oh yeah, forgot. Thank my parents. They're here.
We were wondering if you were going to be
Yeah, that was awkward. Thanks for coming. They can't understand anything I'm saying. My grandparents were here earlier too. It was fun. Warming is the biggest impact in the debate. We not enough their impacts to win. That plan does nothing counter warming. Any of the risk the capital themselves internally to warming. That they do not solve this reason about negative. Because we've conceded their impact calculus. Our internally that way first is dirty coal use in level. China has only one dirty coal plant, a weakness size the UK power grid. Cheap coal technology is better solving that. They can't solve global warming. China is expanding renewables now, but they're still building massive dirty coal plants. China is still an incentive to back up coal around from that says they won't. Also, second is the cheaper, more cost efficient energy prices doesn't have benefit if we don't go for it. And proves the capital themselves out of staff for free through renewable energy from key part of the nation. Future by having on renewable energy for South West Chief School Carbon Dioxide rather than saying that renewables the answer to the state things like community satisfied goals for greenhouse gas emissions improving. So sustainability for getting prices not so high that they do really the economy, and we have an external impact. It's key. China is building dirty coal plants now, and clean coal sells air pollution. U.S. Department of Energy one. I just see run places, especially emerging coal. I get power technology, ready circular. The nitrogen compounds are part of the new sports fuel for air, but now I just see also very effective for hazardous industrial waste and dollars my project, and Chinese air pollution might go for its CCP instability and coal safety. As pollution China was becoming the government or neighborhood deal social rights, social jobs, CCP, social environmental structures, but the general risk was rated the economic growth of China foundation, CCP, causing equal long ranging, and 5 rapid sources of the resource to use balance chemical weapons, so it's like CCP has to kill 200 million Americans, number 2 work life in the world tonight, but in the ball, total war, that place home, one 1 million people hostage, to gamble with it, gamble with their life now. They will not win a solvency debt deficit in RPS, increase electricity price, forcing reliance on highest cost of solution. CPS creates flexibility, solve, and cheaper cost reduction app, and 7 will circulate our RPS, increase electric power, really, making 46 capture reduction, 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 stop. CBS, the show does one recording software training, so welcome to our combination CBS to send a set of marketing control for our always then to make long-term investment confidential into oil commission that RPS increase electricity prices twice as much as CBS factory manufacturing and on also production around the increase of for the low electric technology as coal power plants things on their new thinking and requirements so how you turn to systemic efficiency to protecting method by massive fuel sourcing. The first argument is that renewable steam is not a pick or changing of legislation templates and folks like RPS Berlin and Southern and the Fox are rather than low renewable company portfolio saving rather than renewable sources and focus on renewable energy would these model of global limiting comparison to the nuclear active deployment CCS is conducted from then current capital and important suppliers power presentation destroy the carbon reduction side single character a lot of the RPS effectively supplies on RPS because RPS mandates the first renewable and capture and environmental supply social outputs on RPS renewable compliance with COMCAP and these outbound RPS made regards to what they call prospect fermentation links to clean coal templates and require but the carbon utilities have to be 20% of the power through low carbon sectors speaking inside the room like clean out low carbon energy sources increasing renewables trades off Conrad's more babies of power and trade from power sources and I see the coal plants have really flexibility how much of power and more of it so there's measures that I have the less than moving to the other side of the minute so since I have been having issues and hard to learn and so have issues that are very really one that we have tried to properly back to high penetration and research and closely and we still have less practical solutions in market base and garden template low to the return and appropriate level of investment in technology application and sending these and system and crystal down the value of energy technology and cross shifting neutral sources on certain and talk down my person something else can do by diversification on practical results for us and then under commercial value investment capital is finite Garber and the only time people take advantage of the solar value for profit so over the capital and then have to choose to be because he's potentially very much value for investors being the only people living around and so they more opportunity no one in charge of that investment or volunteer terms they still expressing people walking in capital limited enrolling and that's something you want to send like raising or facing an investment going we have limited capital in those investments for capital and that we need more certain long term for the capital and building innovation and the plan rates and market for renewable effective and winners cost technological lock and method and contribute for every cause of energy subsidy and public investment in energy conservation community and system and nursing and subsidy technology and leader the development and also more exams long-term subsidies locking public technology say project capital and clearly subsidy plans for requirements 20% power generation and must come from renewable sources the capital allows the 20% period met with non-renewable or low carbon sources and that any required fermentation must include the 20% renewable things they allow carbon and non-renewables they have to be renewables and we can still access on that method their standards that can make carbon fair on their RPS and CBS are being rolled policies Hansen and 7 CBS is normal but the Western General Fund team and measure the CBS from carbon allocation on the generally comes in capital and clean tech and all the best training and cover our RPS and always the best part of our market there now they say from TOC collection plan and subsidiary that plans that plan templates is solved now they say railroad and rail price versus price data tracking says what's in the railroad our long term bar said calculate when the price of the certain things rail comes back more and more and terms of watch well the market will find railroad sex and contracts on and earning capacities and could be that being a separate railroad company and 7 generation investment return should allow for safer railroad capacity and data and information which possibly things have reduced the advantage of public record enhanced capacity increasing the coal growth and the railroad to pull out the 7 BNS and that for the increase of the outtake and the whole thing is increasing coal positive demand has been subject to your web more friends and safety the one after coming out of the road that allows you to go through for it was not long about for coal positive content has been yes and yes roll and it's either and some job and on and you know sure transportation this the transportation process is about the one that you guys are captain for coal to look to news conference like coal transportation central right time has like area lots of spots to or intertwined they see coal we told 1,000 years metro coal reserve for coming hour and says that taking the gravity to control the interchange and for years of coal reserve finding below point to a relatively high force people believe the whole experience as health care graph that was snapshot and the conventional non-special for as a direct coal today except 300 cultural to around 1,000 in the last 250 years plan and 9 coal bases available and comes from more than 9 as a couple of borders such as here to recover reserves and 250 years is also a long time frame based in mountaintops. There's no impact coal mining impacts are localized even the worst case area around a coal mining turn to desert that would just be the area around coal mining turn and impacts in terms of policy in terms of commercializing IGCC solve the impacts to coal mining waste and water use tries to set the commercial IGCC especially work because we have the clean process capture some coal must be for next year reduce the death of something like hydrox and continually available of low waste and application from the half volume generated by too much coal coal gas and gasification will reduce environmental impacts will slowly reduce the challenge of low waste and train no impact that as these has to be noted in 6 increasing coal mining conflicts also factor on the climate is my one very tight touch with the pollution with mining areas mining research from the very positive environmental assessment of research demonstrated that tree goes in the environment and creates CO2 capture source base here with the modeling of falls. One happens in any case, the international community wants emissions reduction also. We saw the focus on the average is just about warming, it's not yet enough specifically. We also saw their technology sharing. Arguing is not so superior to renewables. We saw technology sharing with China, because they're saying dirty coal now. We and dirty coal now. Group out there is their CCS batteries versus your legal drivers yellow and not sourcing the long-term sponsor CO2 that's just in the rock waiting. A lot of CO2 gets stuck and field test from Nashville coal CO2 should believe for risk is less than 1% over 1,000 years droves in and CO2 being stored in environmental interference, CO2 being stored using natural traffic might be stored in huge oil, gas, and fuel, are CO2 environmental interference technology almost used by oil and gas for decades by direction CO2 push oil towards producing also natural gas CO2 from the ground from rail and production CO2 contained will be more than 99% say do a sign for saying him 98 reparations report with chemical CO2 so rich and national CO2 will find CO2 for 10,000 about 14 million years old level storage CO2 stored in the eradication CO2 contained that's what part of that time so small and the end of the rocket forming new carbon shell and shelters for those studies are good which answers their anti-bar studies the anti-CO2 sequestration studies lack qualification junk in and 9 I'll take the second round. Rajesh. Yeah. Alright. I don't know how much time it was.
Sweet. All right. So my first question is, I guess, your counter plan provides a renewable energy mandate for every single
carbon,
clean.
it's not a renewable energy mandate.
Okay, and our plan just provides the incentive for renewable energy. Why isn't this functionally plan plus?
A couple reasons. First is any legitimate permutation still has to do renewable energy.
So why wouldn't renewable energy, I guess, potentially be developed under your counter plan?
Your mandate
That
for
is
increase renewable, not
Yeah,
decrease.
that is a possibility. However, the counterplan is a distinct mandate to cap emissions and to do low carbon technology.
So why
Our
can't we
Harkin
cap emissions?
Hang on, our
at
Harkin
this-
evidence provides the only credible basis for establishing competition. In the real world, these are distinct policy options
Yeah,
that
no,
are
I
competing in
understand.
Congress.
I
Our
understand
evidence
they
indicates
competed
that
in
they are
Congress, and I
separate
also know
legislation.
it got voted down in Congress, and an RPS is still around. But my question is,
Our
why
RPS has
is
been voted against 25 times.
17?
By the way, Rajesh is about to kick politics, so this is
Anyway, so my question is, why is, I guess your evidence indicates from David Bielo that CO2 CCS technology works. Where does he get his, I guess, information?
Rajesh is about to read a pro-diet of all of our studies. A couple of reasons. First is our evidence cites empirical data. Okay, look, the stuff that people use to shift CO2 underground is the same technology that the oil and gas industry has used for however long they've been around.
So
like,
why
since
has the
beginning
Department of
oil and gas
Energy
industry.
been funding billions into clean coal for the past 3 decades and doesn't have a viable
They
technology?
actually really haven't been funding clean coal. They've been funding IGCC or CCS, but they've not been combining them together.
Do you have any evidence making this like sort of arbitrary delineation that you assert?
Your evidence does not make this distinction. This was not a 2AC argument. Our evidence indicates that current, and this is just a factual statement of fact, that's redundant. Our evidence indicates that IGCC technology has been invested in now. The only reason that fails is because there's not a way to sequester and store the carbon. The sequestration and storage of carbon solves all of the reasons that coal could possibly be dirty.
Okay,
Because it ensures that it's stored underground.
All right,
which is
so
the same
let me
technology
get this
used
straight.
for
You read a whole bunch of pieces of evidence from, I guess, coal industry hacks who indicate that clean.
That's silly to make
can I
that
ask my
assertion,
question?
because our evidence provides that, yeah.
So you read a piece of evidence, I guess all of your evidence indicates that coal would be substantively cheaper. Where does your evidence, it seems like, where does any of this evidence assume a world where clean coal is not a viable technology?
Those technology cost-effective cards will be in the one on our.
So clean coal, do you have any evidence indicating clean coal is cheaper than renewable energy technology?
Our evidence indicates that it is in fact more cost-effective. I read a piece of evidence at the top. Yeah, I read a piece of evidence at the top of the 2NC. There was a card in the 1NC, and the electricity prices disadd. Every single one of those cards is comparative between an RPS and CPS, and explicitly says that it is more cost-effective to a CPS.
So my last question is, you read these Chinese air pollution atoms. Why can't we give them renewable energy?
They're in fact doing renewable energy now, but they don't have an incentive to back off of coal. Dirty coal is inevitable there.
Yeah, sure. Definitely.
conflicts, the warming advantage, and then electricity prices I went over.
You know, do you have my warming bill by any chance? I think I gave it to you with all the cards and I handed it to you after two.
Yeah, I have it. I accidentally wrote it.
That's okay. I just need to read what you told them.
I'm going to be finishing a car that, did you start this car?
I read the tag, but
Alright, I'll just reread it. Okay.
it's just the code item in the studies tag. If everyone got that tag, then it's fine.
I'm just gonna read the tag.
We'll save 3 valuable seconds. Game's fast.
Or starts to qualify Bellarmine and to do 8 myth, the earthquakes compress CO2, look at CO2 will never happen because we never know earthquakes likely CO2 never score in earthquake prone areas. Trapped in CO2 not necessarily CO2 like oil and gas and the dash naturally leaks. Also clarification against the permutation. It still provides, it still leads to renewable energy, means it still links to our offense. And anti-CO2 sequestration last qualification don't deny many of the papers on topic CO2 written by researchers flow no trade geologic scientists. Search not spread by the impact of public journals, important detailing from your misconception of effect in published articles, referring journals, and site selections of the impact. Jumping out 8 major effects of CCS and were unidentified contamination. These will be often and properly geologic storage EPA models developed by the IDC, the modern storage. These programs also reliable for continuous monitoring, detect, mitigate, and police. Also, there are groups of cost committed warranties. This argument is not a single word in the count plan where we agree that cheap coal means utilities don't think they invest in clean coal. The count plan changes the mindset to cost reduction possible with R&D Declare 8E technology, but DOE's promise to reduce current costs of CO2 and 0% more CCS, 100% technology used from 30% to the right hand to building costs of CCS, and the count plan changes utility investment decision by creating regulatory uncertainty. They'll realize clean coal investment is a good idea. They'll do it. APT7 if countries were to recognize the government to reduce CO2 emissions would not be a decision accordingly. Russia now to build country until Russia and like country price would not be to increase total cost major utilities investment build carbon price and secure the capital by pursuing utilities but build facilities without a carbon price installing advanced technology would not be profitable. Entities system cost competitive enough investment in adult 7 CO2 captures where all corporate technology EPRI would substantial investments carbon manageable ultimate coal base can be competitive with a low carbon technology IGC more carbon and by 3 units cold capture IGC and plan we're reviewing still less than that the current foresight of gas prices also calls it's not going for continued no spillover which means can't satisfy insurance also plans popular will pass and means no offense here. Now the warming flow first they've conceded the fact that coal is enough goal which means they can't stop warming impact and no bottling arguments to not take to fundamentally question that coal is cheaper in other countries, which means that they'll never use this, which means that they have not isolated and shown why they solve warming. Only we can. That means impact only goes one way, extinction double without clean coal. Now their average spread obstacles cold abandon this question indicates that there's no that it's possible to do this, but the state archivist disproves it indicates it did not solve all coal. And their evidence on the dis that proves it would trade off natural gas, not coal, which means that the internal link of this plan is very, very minuscule. Anyways, that coal still exists or coal is still in fact it means we solve a massive internal link because of how massive the coal emissions target. That's our 1C2 evidence. Now the natives warning the is awful. This question their evidence is not evident indicates why internal link is argument. Second, the capital solved because it creates a renewable energy tax credit. Also, there's no impact determined because there's no internal link between the two, or there's no internal link between biodiversity and cultural connection. Also, the capital solves. Also, coal is the vital internal link solving warming. 4% coal is responding 40% of global carbon emissions, and that's going to actually reduce. By change carbon correction, one by critical technology consider the point coal is only added to modeling and general.
Yeah, just read the other cards that they can't offset it.
You didn't have me that. Okay. Electric prices.
At the top, you can see the need economic impact of warming means leads to nuclear war, which massive emissions threat that kills. Warming killed biodiversity, which shows all the reasons why warming is extinction. Also, they consider calcium which against leadership would collapse on world great collapse, which means that no one else would model it. Because no alternative energy, no great abilities of the plan would not be modeled because it would not be an effect model. It also kills the renewability and competitiveness of the plan, which means it wouldn't be able to solve global rights. Also, causes energy alternative energy down here. The continued increase renewable and investment. Group the first argument here, all of their evidence is speculative on the question of whether or not they can be new transmission upgrades. We prove they cannot. This means that they cannot access their link turn on this question. First, in local political opposition blocks transmission upgrades, which means the plan would be an overload, not meeting existing demands. Wall 27 opposition power lines for a lot of neighbors. Local mission on goes to really wireless expansion, difficult money to go in the second opposition. Opposition to exchange permits, lengthen, approval across increasing sources for the national investment becomes almost starker. Also, utility regulation blocks, mission transition upgrades, W9, the regular structure and credit can improve the electric price, and return factor actually get built provides the regulation reduce the energy market one effect moves, they will less dependent market power plants, and even if transition upgrades occur, the one solve intervention promise means the plan would uniquely so lead to overload. Wall 27, the power of great screening upgrading. It's the power lines with through energy not tending to incorporate power from raw windmills, rearability, defines more complex opposition. Now they conceded 2 1C link arguments, which means you cannot win a link turn based on a question or a link argument here. They have conceded the fact that the order evidence indicates that renewable energy tax credits means countries, places in the southeast which do not have renewable energy technology would force me to do things like buy expensive RCs, which means that the market will manipulate them. They see that energy price spikes will spike in the short term and cause blackouts because it shows great stability. Second, they conceded internal link that gives them an incentive, a perverse incentive to create mass amounts of production, which means that they would overload
the deal which fundamentally collapses. This means we will not reach any new cardship that can see these armies. Means no new 1AR armies. Now they say the LG army. The average is balance question, which means bad on the impact question means, but it does take out their internal link where they trade off with coal. And second, national impacts with increased natural gas demand. Current 420 summons just an with our use would less demand natural gas by natural gas removals the opposite. In fact, natural gas flow renewable power is highly backed up with natural gas. Also, it increases overall gas prices and Michael's aided in calculation markets with low gas prices and markets with the maker will continue operating as long as periodic costs exist. Total price analysts many European studies short-term is renewable effects, world long-term benefits. Also renewables can replace coal because they can't provide baseload integration. Trisco 420 and reduce coal emissions to natural gas and reduce coal means baseload generation. Also no also the camp plan solves natural gas impact. IEGS 3 coal gasification one long-term solution of use growing natural gas one long-term alternatives help the natural gas camp again 2 American size coal reserves using committed coal gasification will reduce natural gas and US quarter both coast residents 3% global natural gas reserve coast gasification while the commercialization process right. Now also coal remains backbone of the US economy with even with renewable technology top 10 nuclear biomass efficient will be part of low carbon technology of coal to use to generate.
Use to generate.
Click bro. Do you use cards?
Yeah. Then politics. Then the counter plan and then electric prices. Tight. Is everyone good? Cool.
Blocks concede our impact calculus. They've conceded warming's only star since they've also conceded our NYT evidence indicates warming outweighs the risk of nuclear war. Evidence indicates the state support rationality, which means no nuclear conflict will actually escalate one lead the extinction. Warming creates synergistic combinations of resource conflicts that escalate the powers will also control. You need to see some evidence indicates warming causes recurring wars, share sites, big certain impacts, and will go to the coal arguments or so cool Cooper evidence indicates we offset coal distinction between state and federal RPS and the one cross section. The reason why state RPS does not offset coal, which federal RPS does, or so cool Cooper evidence indicates 86% of the offsets come from coal. Anyway, also we access our modeling arguments. They can see Podesta evidence in case they can see Podesta evidence in case tech transfer solve all these arguments, solve Copenhagen solve these arguments anyway, which means it's not inevitable go. They were not going to go for the last argument. They have 0 offense here. Go to the car check. It said they did not kick out this in the London politics. Not net better clean energy standards for 2 opposition Jenkins and 7 on each offer to compete for roles that were created through clean energy standard memory skilled by 5639 and only RPS garnished environmental renewable energy support Jenkins and 7 being expect gross RES dominating circulated clean energy 50% or side 2 electric support for renewable energy environmental advocacy around our big pros or opposed community amendments that weekend that weekend standard means it's solve step for the camp plan. Go to the camp plan. Go to the camp plan. Coal use is not enough. They consider B coal evidence indicates coal prices are never get a spike, which means this prevents coal usage future. Also, they can't solve energy prices linked to the camp plan because it functionally includes the plans. Well, we also solve the air pollution impacts, and also they know scenario for nuclear conflict means they can't access these scenario NRT evidence to get the state rationality through the solve step arguments versus term renewables. Keep definitional precision. Solve Cooper evidence indicates infinite ways to incentivize people localities. The ability to use various renewables, but still a word of argument guarantees investor confidence. It's his turn, and the literature based on the arguments about unlimited flexibility through the links for solving arguments skills. RPS effectiveness evidence indicates investors exploit ambiguous definition internal link to the camp line. Also clean coal. The internal link to the camp line. Also clean coal increases emissions. The increased emission science news, and no data carbon saturation requires additional energy meeting all these requirements. Requires exposure to global plan recycle sequester CO2 must burn 30% more coal and federal RPS sets person for cooperative federalism that goes global so call and aid from RPS federal government or in the states address non literature replacing all federal states interact federal states capture benefit for involved centralized federalism this far reaching implications for other areas or showing lists of countries cheating on American federalism Russia India Nigeria based parts of the government United federalism America experience federalism may be useful to for an emergency revolution worldwide and cooperative federalism solves ethnic conflict and fire and 7 ethnic conflicts one method to prevent violent conflicts secession federalism succeeding to far to achieve balance power sharing the central link can be easily undermined and global nuclear war so hardly and 9 nuclear weapons false against groups who will be using fighting 11 ethnic conflicts spread force safety and substance remains for Russia India and regional conflict director of national minorities group the next solves the argument our evidence indicates first of all the permutation people solves this argument and its argument solves all other offense and RPS is a subset of the clean portfolio standard if they are right that investors are looking to the easy way out of that clean coal to cheap solution that is functionally only the capital that's implemented in the world the permutation answer to this investor capital arguments because it doesn't apply to permutation this also does not make sense if they win the plan trades off natural gas and capital uses coal there's no reason the permutation to link their investor trade-off arguments also capital the coal collapse the railroad industry evidence in case coal collapse the industry all their evidence of the industry expands to meet the demand or evidence in case they can't cause or overburden collapse that collapse the economy the impact is our evidence evidence in case cause escalated nuclear conflict. Also, peak coal is nuclear evidence in case even if they win, there is coal in the ground for centuries. They consider corporations cannot access this coal means peak coal is functionally true. Even if they win, they can access it. That's the reason why prices will spike in the future. The reason why China will not be able to inevitably use the means tech transfer solves all these arguments. Also, clean coal solves causes mountaintop removal. Our evidence in case counterplan expands clean coal use, which means we have a unique turn premise out for new technology development means their defense also collapses by the TAA and evidence impact is correct evidence in case cause exchange. Also, no modeling. We have two internal links. Two entities concede our IPR restrictions internally. So call evidence in case prevents tech companies from tech transfer and renewable development to keep Copenhagen. That second internal means perception argument. Countries are watch renewable means we solve the internal impact before they access any risk and benefit. Also, they consider leakage arguments and our infrastructure arguments means we won't be able to actually establish the clean coal argument at bad. Worse, this is the reason why they can't solve quickly enough. Also, our leakage arguments are the reason why they would actually increase warming, which means warming is inevitable. They're not cost competitive arguments. Our evidence case even with technology development, they can't offset existing fossil fuels. Means warming solves the deficit of the count on our hands. Evidence is tiebreaker. Research is exaggerated, which means you should reject their evidence comes from other evidence comes from blog sites as to why it is a credible study, which means you should defer to all of our study. To all of our study, they also can see the RECs are critical solvency deficit enhancing evidence in case there's critical renewables tech transfer, which means we only be access cost competitive renewable energy. Go to the electricity prices. The nuclear war won't happen. They can see it on the case full modeling happens because the plant sends the immediate signal, which happens before the dispatch. Privileges also solve the dispatch for the access and impact. Also call evidence to transmission operation and holding control uniqueness because the alternative is grid collapse answers the one hour evidence because renewables are key to a smart grid evidence in case there's no overload temperature. The only way to solve that kind of collapse impact is grid evidence critical to internal structure. Also nausea evidence. Nausea evidence is the reason why we solve all the natural gas argument because the 1 hour evidence assumes the plant increases intermittency. We solve the work for why we increase natural gas. Also, there's not a reason that we contradict with any of our full arguments. Our evidence in case LNG dependency is high and fast when LNG prices are peak, which is the reason why the plan just shifts. The plan shifts dependence to renewables, but still offsets coal energy. Also, intermittency is empirically not just the reason why we solve. The reason why we solve this impact. The impact is war, which is the reason why we turn count.
Has the permutation you extended termed you both or termed you count?
Just you both.
Yeah. How much time do you have?
We all have 602.
Electricity disadd, and then the counter plan. There will be an overview on the counter plan.
This might just be me. The acoustics are kind of weird. You can maybe like move.
Yes. Where should I go?
Let me move the tub a little up on the table.
Yeah.
You could just move the table. Yeah. We have a partner for this. What? Yeah, what's nice? Yeah, I'll be more higher.
Politics, the one are explicitly conceded as Bellarmine. They can't access their new impact and their new internal interns. Now the other just said they conceded turns case first is nuclear war kills biodiversity means we control terminal impact. Need to second is the economic decline turns alternative energy development. No, and that's in capital go and develop new technology. They say the plan says signal modeling back to long-term signal base of the success of your strategy clearly failed. We wouldn't set signal. Third is they conceded there's no capital. We caught economic decline. People will not invest in renewable energy technology. Won't help decrease warming. Conceded in the morning. Our days conceded no transmission upgrades. Not political position money is spread for happy communities only with our life. Don't look at other things we need demand. Once the evidence says overseas, caught exploiting southeast states like Atlanta who have no renewable energy. You can't generate electricity at a monopoly, which jacks up prices. Second production overseas plus renewable energy level self large add new transmission lines or so-called evidence concedes will happen quickly. These are like they also concede our link argument, which means there's only with the increased energy prices screw. The grid only comes as we outline quick should improve that comes before the appetite. They say LNG first. They did not extend the impact for them in coal solves. They concede gasification means we would use it to displace LNG demand. They also increase demand for making renewable technology cause natural gas backup generators only coal can be content and solve the intermittency arguments that don't apply because now about the need for backup generators. Yeah, backup generators not the counter plan. This debate is out who solves warm better. We will definitely win the counter plan solves it better and it is the biggest impact of truth and the one here is not time to answer either of our internal links that isolated the top of the two and say any external impacts are outweighed by warming. None of their harmful causes large term cause mass warming and risk the absence of warming is a reason about because substitution emissions are inevitable. One here does not extend their Copenhagen advantage, so you should not allow the 2 hours to do this. I'm making a 2 hour choice. They've also explicitly conceded that we solve their modeling advantage as well because ours is not about renewable technology, it's just now tech transfer. Now we control terminal unique. They conceded that dirty coal is inevitable in China. We've been external impact in this caused by the solving air pollution in China. There's constantly machine lash out nuclear war. This is something that they cannot solve. They can't solve tech transfer in China. They think China has renewable energy now, but they don't have an incentive to change their practices because they think coal will solve. They will only back away from dirty coal down the limelight. They say people, their evidence does not make a production capacity argument at all. They have conceded 2 pieces of our and could happen in case we have enough coal to last us for thousands of years. Also, the long-term internal to the economy, the very least we can transition to renewables later, but we need short-term clean energy to solve countries like China. They say they say we don't solve energy prices. Those arguments we're all in the distance are explicit and benefits are running hard on this. That the one does not have the answer. They say solve this assumes that we change the RPS. They conceded the one to see solve US Congress. Now there needs to be a bright line for what kinds of new one-hour arguments you allow the one-hour make arguments that are based on explicit extension to the arguments they've made. A new federal decide is on the one hand. They should not have to answer, but have to answer because it's pretty new. And but all these answers anyway. I'm sure that spending more federal requiring all of the relevant maker. And one, the Congress spend no matter how nearly the co-might become powers is the under the Congress under the local they suggest the cause not all of the Congress words. States that nearly workable definition of the origin germane is the actual or hypothetical examples and more evidence expansive. Spending cause means no trouble solves through data. Look into the spending cause means an extra tier of evidence made on show little inclination to apply federal Supreme Court. They say clinical cause emissions that will be answered on the leak page now. Except they say the permutation first is 2 distinct links are separate reasons the permutation the links first investment capitals find are Nolan that kind of Adler Garber and Wilkins have themselves explicit the world of permutation limited investors exist and those same investors trade off second they consider grid capacity internally and Conrad says is important says it is impossible for the grid to physically hold both base load and intermittent power sources because the permutation thirds are care evidence as says the carbon reduction standard provided for permutation sources they say the CBS you should prefer because it is more sensitive because it's more specific now when he extends all of his options and the one here does not make a single attempt to answer any of the cards I read on this constituency. You should not force me to re-explain all these because I invested massive amounts of time. First, they say relevance and conceded that markets are enough to correct systems empirically proven. They also said that they have enough capacity. They also conceded this offense for us because the plastic coal outlook indicates coal generates more growth in the railroad industry. They say mining and conceded we have a bigger internally defined diversity because we saw the forming benefit. Also conceded the commercialization of IGCC because there's an incentive for them to make it a deminable area areas. We also have explicit evidence that there's not a new impact now. They say modeling and tech transfer. They conceded that is offense for us because they can't solve the modeling in countries that really matter because they're dirty coals and that believe conceded the pro-diet are the false conceded 2 pieces of evidence that makes a cost reduction example for R&D demonstrating projects solve the cost reduction arguments. They've also conceded there's no risk of leakage because it's the same technology that's been used empirically. We read 5 pieces of evidence and has been used for the oil and gas industry for ages. They say RCC capital has been forced like an RPS, so it solves that.
Y'all have 3:13. All right. You got a timer start?
No one moved.
Get off.
Not allowed to wear it in the day.
Well, I just said giant.
Alright, then I won't run. Alright. Oh.
Alright, the order is the prices disadd, warming, the counter plan, and on the counter plan, actually, put warming on top, then the prices disadd, then the counter plan, and on the counter plan, I'm going to go bottom up to the first 3 arguments, and then start back from the top.
There are 2 reasons. First is that warming out waste, which means it's the only exception to central which means you would vote on the soft steps because the permutation also net benefit. The second is if they win their econ turns warming arguments, we're going to win a stronger term linked to the economy, which means that we outweigh. They conceded that the RPS offsets 86% of coal, which means we solve coal better than the counterplan, which means any risk that CCS counterplan or any risk that CCS technology fails means that we offset coal, which means the soft steps of the counterplan. That's our soft coal evidence indicates we solve coal better. Also, both the evidence indicates we solve Copenhagen, which means solve warming better. Go to the prices. They said they conceded our stricter. Our soft coal evidence indicates we solve transmission upgrades because we create transmission upgrades that are cheaper and faster. Our evidence indicates we create them within 6 months. So we create an initiative of a total transition to renewable energy infrastructure. The impacts are Heimberg evidence indicates this is the only scenario for total economic collapse. It indicates that we need new renewable energy in the infrastructure sector because only if we have new renewable energy should be offset the peak oil and also peak fossil fuels. Our evidence indicates that every time the economy tries to recover, it will collapse. And as a result of renewable infrastructure, we need renewable infrastructure to solve this. It's a disadvantage. Counterplan is a question of economic development of renewable energy. It's opposed to the clean coal technology. It's not a question of emissions. It's a question of energy resources. We prove disadvantage. Counterplan. They only make a few arguments as to why we increase electricity prices. They're outweighed by our soft steps and arguments. I'll get back on the counterplan. They say RECs exploit states. They have zero impact as to why this increases electricity prices, especially if they conceded our REC solvency deficit argument also transmission upgrades are inevitable. It's so evidence indicates it's only question of whether they're cheaper and induced by an RPS as opposed to crisis induced. Also, if they win the turns case arguments means there's no investment, no modeling, and we outweigh. That means we have stronger term link to the economy. Go to the counterplan. They have conceded the bottom argument. They conceded our argument that RECs are crucial to RPS success. The problem is the counterplan has clean energy credits. The problem is the counterplan clean energy credits are impossible because we've never had a clean energy credit system. Our first evidence on point, our first evidence on point is why every state has renewable energy credits. Only question of whether or not national RPS can integrate those renewable energy credits. The fact is the counterplan creates jurisdictional confusion over whether or not what an REC is because no one knows what a clean energy credit is. There, the impacts of our first evidence indicates electricity prices are net increases outweighs every single one of their net benefit arguments. It indicates on the whole, clean portfolio standard that includes coal would obliterate electricity prices would increase because it creates regulatory uncertainty. That means they can't access their offense. This is also a reason why the cooperative federalism add-on is a disadvantage to the counterplan. Also go to the no model debate that, or also go to the clean coal technology bad debate. They are conceding too many arguments here. They're conceding that our time record evidence indicates the methodology is ultimately the question that their heads and privacy and evidence indicates that their researchers categorically exaggerate the cost of clean coal. Our evidence indicates that clean coal will always fail. If we win a risk that clean coal fails, then we win a risk that the investment spent on clean coal would increase electricity prices because it wouldn't be going to increase any electricity production, but it would be taken away from renewable energy. Also, they conceded so a few specific arguments for so evidence indicates leakage creates massive concerns involving storage and sequestration continues to cost. It'd be incredibly expensive for renewable energy technology. Also, so evidence indicates the infrastructure is far more expensive than any other possibility because even if we had 60% of CO2 emissions captured by coal, that would be equivalent to all oil transportation in the United States. Would create the pipeline system, the infrastructure system would be far too difficult. The impact is our hands in privacy and evidence. The TOC indicates that clean coal is far more expensive than any other possible scenario. You prefer our evidence because it's a comparative peer-reviewed study indicating that even though specific scientists indicate that clean coal is good, it's only a question of the aggregate whole, which indicates that their researchers categorically overestimate the possibility of clean coal because they have an incentive to do so because to get research dollars go to the modeling debate. They conceded our so-called evidence indicates IPR restrictions on clean coal technology means there's zero possibility of any modeling. The impact is our Copenhagen evidence, our Northwood evidence, and our Peace Center evidence indicates tech transfers are the unquestioned key. This also in terms of China add-on because it indicates the only way China can get technology is renewable energy transfers. There is not a cogent answer to this in the entirety of the debate. You can vote on this alone because it means they can't access counterplan. It means the only risk that the plan solves any possibility of the permutation. Go to the top of the counterplan. I'll answer their impact arguments here. First, the we saw modeling argument that's answered by our patents argument that they conceded. They also conceded our potential all evidence indicates renewable energy technology transfers can occur. It's not a question of market price. They also conceded that peak oil means that coal become more expensive than natural gas, which means renewables are cheaper, which means we have an internal link to the situation. Solvency is the solvency question on that issue. The China advantage is solved by the plan. Also, the solvency deficit. They're conceding our definition of precision arguments. Their so-called evidence indicates a question of administrative complexity. They reference a piece of evidence they read in the 2 and C about why clean portfolios can just like an RPS. The problem is it's not our so-called evidence. It's why we have vague, open definitions of what an RPS is, including a clean portfolio standard. Then you create uncertainty, which means businesses never invest, which would increase electricity prices and increase emissions. They also conceded Saugers and science news evidence, which indicates CCS increases emissions because it costs 30% more energy for each coal plant, but it doesn't create any substitute. If we win, there's a risk that CCS fails, and it would increase emissions means with warming to disadvantage counter plan. Also, they conceded the add-on or evidence as to why RPS integrates at the state level. The counter plan can solve this because RECs are unique to the state level. The impacts of shoddy evidence or so-called evidence because we have global cooperative federals of add-on. This is a justified argument because the impact to our REC solvency deficit in the 2AC, and it's also justified by all the new impacts they read in the block. Also, the permutation do well solves all their offsets. The SARS analysis, if coal is cost competitive in the counter plan, the CCS gets incentivized with the permutation do both, which solves their entire net benefit. benefit. Otherwise, we win the solvency deficit.
Greenstein here.
Control here.
Control's outside.
We need to get them in here.
Control.
Is Culpepper here? I don't think any of them are. They're exhausted. They're exhausted. We have to serve them right.
Can we sit down so we can see it?
People need to light you here.
Are they coming? Yes. Are they on their way?
I don't gamble on debate rounds.
It's 12:40 at night.
Mr. Control is here. Now we're waiting for Mr. Culpepper and Mr. Greenstein.
That was Jennifer's hand.
That's what I was doing. Last year, Jacob was 10 minutes late because he got it like 3 minutes.
What, putting your fingers in front of it?
Not the hair.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh, I didn't. I did it.
Oh, please sign.
It's just because I'm so tired.
People are slap happy.
Now are they here?
Wait, not all the coaches are here.
Oh, our
They're getting
panel.
here in a minute.
Now are the coaches here?
No, not yet.
Are the teams here?
Team's breathing.
Not all the coaches are here. They're going to be here in 15 minutes. We're waiting for Andrew Jennings and Brett Ricker, who are coming in right now.
I think in debate what we do most of all is we hurry up and wait. All right, the judges are here. Oh. The teams are here.
We're here.
But the coaches aren't here.
No, coaches are here now.
The coaches, everyone's here? Everyone's here. Great, great. Well, here we are for the 39th time to find out who the national champion is for 2009. And we'll follow our usual pattern of calling on each judge separate, one at a time. We'll ask you to make a very brief comment as to why you voted as you did. Then later, we can continue the dialogue into the midnight hour, or we're already there, if you prefer. So the judges look alert. Greenstein is smiling. I'll call on him first and ask him how he voted and why he did what he did briefly, and then later in great detail why he did what he did.
I voted NAG. I thought that they got some warm in. I thought that they saw modeling, trend and absolutely is going to pollute, and we got to get some carbon decrease if instead of renewable energy, can't overwhelm it. I thought a lot of your reasons why the tech didn't work, wasn't feasible, et cetera, didn't assume that all the kind of one. That's kind of the short of it.
Okay, now when you say you voted NAG, let's identify who the NAG is.
You should check my ballot.
And you are from? I've heard of that school. They've been here before.
Welcome to the team.
All right, now I guess it's time to hear from Mr. Culpepper.
I voted AF. I think that, yeah, that's definitely by design. I essentially, first off, I want to say this is the best debate I've judged in 2 years of judging. In terms of my enjoyment level, I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is what debate, I really like this debate. I think this was a situation where the NEG had better evidence. I think that the AF was more precise in their debating in the 1AR and 2AR and generated a solvency deficit where you solved warming better than the NEG did, and solved coal and warming better.
All right, now, and the NEG is from?
Affirmative.
Affirmative is from Bellarmine.
I mean the affirmative is from
Bellarmine.
I've heard you. Congratulations.
Give me that West Coast.
All right, now we're down to one ballot, and it's the only one that counts at this point. We can tear the others up and throw them away, and we're coming down now, but I think probably this is the appropriate time to talk about the history. I know you'd like to hear who the first winners are.
Amen.
Oh my god.
Hey.
Well,
I would like to hear this.
I will tell you that the first winners, and then we'll move on. They closed it out. The only time it's ever been closed out came from Milwaukee. And the coach later went on to become the NFL director. That was the first. The only time the same team. The same team has ever won the was in 1975 and 76. A team from New York City. One of those people later went on to be the MVP champion. Now, having said that, we won't keep the suspense any longer. So this burden is on you, Mr. Kunzhal, and I know you can bear it. So tell us how you voted and briefly why you did.
I voted for Westminster.
Why did you do it?
I do think a lot of what Brent is saying is true. I think more focus, though, needed to be given to what the internal link to warming was, not just the mechanisms by which we get there. Here are the things I think that the negative did end up winning pretty conclusively. First is that coal will be produced internationally, that the AF can't displace it internationally. The best evidence you have on this is just the one that says that they can displace coal in the U.S. I think if you have some more arguments in the 2AR or maybe even in the 1AR about why only U.S. emissions matter, or if we significantly cut U.S. emissions, that we can access warming independently, and I think y'all have those cards. And this is definitely a symptom, I think, of this debate getting too big and both sides trying to go for way too much. Like, I don't know what the point was of voting for the federalism dissent or the perm. I mean, there's just far too much baggage there. The 1AR, I think, kind of just shadow extended that stuff. So coal will be developed internationally, China, India, South Africa. They won't adapt renewable energy as a result of the plant. Your evidence is good on the issue of they might want to model us, but it doesn't necessarily say that they will stop their coal production. And they actually have a card that is comparative on this, that those coal investments that were made are ones that they're not willing to give up. Rather, they might just kind of pile onto it and have surplus energy production. The second question I have to ask is whether or not the counterplan or the plan better displaces this. And I kind of feel like this is what took me the most amount of time. Your evidence is good on just we need to kind of take the first step in order to get other people to follow along. And your evidence is pretty good on that, but like I said, it doesn't say it displaces coal. Their evidence is pretty good, but I kind of agree with Brent that this IPR argument was never answered or handled that well, and the warrant is just, and you know, it was brief in the 1AR, it just says, you know, IPR means that there's no modeling, and I think there's a difference that both sides could have hashed out between modeling and exporting. There's a difference between us producing clean coal and then exporting it, and then them modeling our clean coal technology. The NEG has evidence for both, and neither side really hashed out this distinction, so I can understand if there's frustration on either side, but your evidence is good on why we want some companies, and it is decisive in saying some companies might not want to export because they think people will reverse engineer. They do have evidence saying that if we develop clean coal and prove that it works, other countries will try to independently develop their clean coal now that they know that there is a workable model. Now, whether or not that's possible, can they develop clean coal without importing it from us? Once again, a question that no one really answered and kind of forced me to hash through a lot of these things. And so, ultimately, I conclude that neither side really accesses warming that much better, but there is a general impact calculus that was made oddly enough, y'all are both making the same impact calculus and acting like it's a devastating concession from the opposing side. They are obviously trying to go for warming outweighs everything. That's what their solvency deficit is going to outweigh your econ impact or China impact, which I don't understand why you're going for this. I mean, you literally say, you don't even just say warming outweighs everything. Your impact calculus, word for word, is whoever accesses warming better wins the debate. If they win that they access warming better, I don't know what this China impact gets you. So to me, that's kind of a moot point, which is why I didn't really evaluate a lot of that. But I conclude that very marginally, the neg has a slightly greater chance of altering it because they have evidence that says that they won't give up coal. However, they are willing to reform coal. And as long as the counterplan might risk getting them to reform their current coal production with clean coal, they have the best chance of solving devastatingly close. I think maybe more emphasis on maybe coal internationally, not the crucial internal link, just U.S. emissions, not, you know, also big internal link in the 2AR. And I think you're back in business, but I do want to say, I mean, I never debated this well in high school. Y'all definitely impressed me, and I think you impressed everyone. All of y'all should be extremely happy. It was a pleasurable debate, and regardless of what happened, be proud. Y'all debated real fucking well. This is the third time I judge you today, and easily two of the best debaters I think I've ever seen in my life, college and high school.
It's my pleasure to present the second place trophy. It's equally my pleasure to present this first place trophy to this distinguished team of Westminster. We will continue the discussion now, and I think it's appropriate that we next call on the dissenter in this decision for a little more elaboration if you'd like to give it.
It's entirely up to you if you want to hear it.
You want to hear it?
If you would rather go do other things,
If you'd rather
that's
go
fine with me. Okay. I'll try and keep it fairly brief. I thought the 2 and I, frankly, was fairly scant on a lot of these questions. I think that you inaccurately described the 1AR as dropping all of your evidence and then just naturally assume it with a tagline. I don't think you ever on point answered this IPR argument. Your evidence, your Dalton evidence, does say that exportation would occur and investors would be willing to do it if it was financially sensible or an available option. I think that this intellectual property rights argument seems to say that that is not the case. It would serve as a principal inhibiting factor to private equity being willing to, at any point, invest in kind of exportation of coal products. I also think that there's a substantial, and I would be interested to hear a little more about this in the 2AR, but there is this kind of argument regarding jurisdiction and enforcement in the U.S. about whether or not an effective energy credit system can function in a world where coal and nuclear power is also included within the system. I don't ever have you in the 2NR making an on-point answer to that question. And here's why I think that's so important. It's because if the model is indeed the case, then the model has to be an accurate one. And I don't think at that point you're exporting an accurate model to be done. And I think that their Podesta evidence, as well as a couple other pieces of evidence, does seem to say that that's kind of the crucial point. I'm also, frankly, fairly sympathetic to the idea. Your evidence from the neg, their evidence, is essentially far superior to yours on the question of clean coal actually working, and on the question of whether or not it's going to be long-term cost prohibitive, et cetera. I think you do a far better job in the 2NR of describing those type of arguments and kind of impacting those, even with kind of just the generic, our Heidenberg evidence or whatever. It's been a while since I read it. You know which one I'm talking about. Heidenberg, I think, is the last name. Just the kind of claims that this is a peer-reviewed study that assumes your people and comes out the other way, and that type of, I just think the debating is better on those questions. And you know, I agree with you all entirely. I think the federalism thing is a waste of your time. It doesn't get you anywhere, frankly. The impact is subsumed way by the question of who ultimately accesses money and kind of sides in that way.
But that's the nature. Just like oddly, electricity prices are probably don't. Definitely. Almost every argument you make is just like that's an index. So if you can get a back I agree with that too. Yeah, just like how, more explanation about how the price is so high, it's going to mile to it or something, impact, But, you guys are, I love judging you guys all year.
We were all talking about how it was nice to finally judge a debate on what the core of the topic is, and for that we were much appreciated.
I can say more if anyone has more questions, but I don't know if y'all want to hear me like complain and criticize.